What is going on, shrimp keepers? So I have a special guest here. There he is. So I got Lucas Bretz with me, aka LR Bretz Aquatics. You guys can find him on YouTube. People refer to him as Shrimp Jesus. They refer to him as a lot of things, but he is just an awesome guy. He actually came down to visit for the day. I think you're gonna be going home with some shrimp, right?
Oh, and some fish.
And some fish.
Wait, maybe some stone and driftwood too?
Yeah, so he's got a huge shopping cart list that he wants to get taken care of. But tonight we're just hanging out. We're gonna do some videos. And today what we're actually gonna talk about is Lucas Bretz keeps a ton of shrimp, and we're gonna go through his top 5 tips to keeping and breeding shrimp. So I'm excited to see what they are because every shrimp keeper has a different way of doing things. So Lucas, you're gonna share some of your wealth of knowledge with us, right?
Yeah, I'll give you a few tips. 5 of them.
5, we can do that, right?
Yep, I think I could do that.
Perfect. So we're gonna go ahead and get in the video. So you guys stay tuned. All right, Lucas. Tip number 1. For keeping and breeding freshwater shrimp, the most important tip of them all, what is it?
Most important tip, I would say getting healthy shrimp to begin with.
Healthy shrimp. Now, how do you define healthy?
Healthy shrimp would be something that you don't have to fear causing issues in your tank, especially down the road, like the Ella Biopsidae, Hydra, and Planaria stuff coming in. Just clean shrimp.
Honestly, I think that's great. Like, for people watching, how do they find healthy shrimp? Like, do they look on Facebook? Like, where are trusted places they could go?
You can get them from home breeders, which you gotta watch some home breeders. They'll act like they are home breeders, but really be importers. So you really want to know who you're getting them from. Thing I love about Flip Rob is that they actually quarantine their shrimp. And most importers, they're turn and burn, and they don't really care to quarantine or anything. Like, nobody does that. And one of the biggest issues with shrimp is bacterial infections, mostly coming from those imports. And I've learned that personally. But definitely healthy shrimp. If you got healthy shrimp, that will make your odds a lot better.
All right, Lucas. Tip number 2.
Alright, tip number 2, feeding. It's important. Now, a lot of people think that you can just buy shrimp and they'll graze off the algae and eat all the mulm and everything in the tank, and you really don't have to feed them very often. Well, if you want success and get them breeding better, it is good to feed them consistently, at least once a day. Some people take the weekends off. I've even gone as far as feeding them twice a day. That's if I'm doing water changes, keeping up with it and everything else. And I like to use brightly colored food. That way I can see if I'm overfeeding. And if for any instance that you start seeing any of the food get fungus, get it out of there right away, because when they start eating on it, they'll start getting bacterial infections and other problems, and it can just snowball for you.
Less is better, would you agree?
I agree.
Awesome.
But not to the point that you're starving them.
Now, what do you feed, just out of curiosity?
I feed tetracolor tropical green.
You feed that to everything in your fish room, right?
Everything.
And you have how many tanks?
198, 197, somewhere around.
So we'll just say you have 200 tanks with tons of shrimp, tons of fish, and you feed everything.
Even the baby fish.
Tropical fish, or tropical color tetra, what is it? Say it again.
Tetracolor tropical green.
Gee, that is so funny, and it works.
Yeah, what I love about them is they're hardy, and you can customize them by just smashing them in your fingers. So like your guppies and endlers, they have smaller mouths, so you can kind of dust that on top with the smaller kind of size granules. And like the bigger rainbow fish, they like that hardier pellet. And with the baby fish fry, you can just dust what's left on your finger for them.
That's awesome.
What I love about it most is the fact that it's orange. You can see if you're overfeeding. Because when you're feeding so many tanks and running and gunning it, it can be easy to overfeed. And if you do that, you create so much work for yourself. And it'll also let me know if I need to feed them at night and just kind of how they're doing.
All right, Lucas, tip number 3.
All right, tip number 3 is to not touch your shrimp when you first get them. Let them be, and they will get comfortable with their space, because if you start messing with them too much, they're more than likely gonna be slow to breed on you. So go ahead and set them and forget them for at least a month, and then you'll get some breeding going.
Now what? Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
And that brings me back to the nursery question. When you leave them be, try to set them up with a nursery. So you can do that with a pile of rocks or something like that, because when they get comfortable and find their space, that's when they start breeding.
Gotcha.
They hate to be messed with.
Now how about this? When you set up a tank and you leave them, at what point do you say, like, oh man, I need to intervene, or never? Like, you leave them no matter what for the first month?
No, if there's something going awry, then you do want to intervene, and you want to try to figure out what that is first. So it could be a temperature thing, it could be a bacterial thing, it could just be random death from the age of the shrimp.
Gotcha.
So it could be a variety of things.
So you just try to keep it as consistent as possible in the
Right.
first, what'd you say, the first month?
Yeah, for the first month, with least interaction as possible.
Gotcha. Now, I always had this question because I tried the nursery before, and I unfortunately failed at it. What ended up happening is I had too much like leftover food getting down in there. Do you have a way to clean them out, or a recommendation for that?
Well, what I do is I feed away from the nursery. So if you're using a pile of rocks, you want to feed away from that so they can go, you can tell if you're overfeeding them or not.
Gotcha.
And it's way better to underfeed them than overfeed them. And that's where the Malaysian driftwood and plants come in handy, because if they're hungry enough, they can scavenge and eat the plants. That's why moss is so great to use, especially for a nursery. Rocks aren't the only option for a nursery. A big reason why people use moss is it creates a little metropolis for the shrimp to get comfortable in.
Yeah.
The only problem with moss is when you do water changes, it can kick the moss up and turn it up over, and it just causes disturbances, which pretty much resets the comfort level of the shrimp.
Yeah. Now, what is your ideal nursery? Like, what does it consist of? How big is it?
Thick plants, just either thick plants or a rock pile, something that's not going to get disturbed during water changes or anything else.
Gotcha. Do you prefer a certain type of rock, or it doesn't matter?
It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. All right. All right, Lucas. What's tip number 4?
All right, for tip number 4, try to keep them in a natural environment. Saying that, you want to keep plants in there somewhere they can get comfortable and make a nursery and also forage off of.
So what elements go into a natural environment? So
there's a few things that can go in there, and you can use them in any variation that you want, but you should have at least one of the following. You should have either moss or any other type of plant, or some Malaysian driftwood, or well, any kind of driftwood, and rocks. So the best thing, rocks, driftwood, and plants make an even better shrimp tank, because they can forage off of the driftwood if they're not getting enough to eat. I've learned Malaysian driftwood is a really good driftwood for them because it's softer and they can actually eat off of it more. I've actually seen them sand down a piece of Malaysian driftwood to where it looks smooth.
Yeah?
Yeah. And then with keeping the plants, you get more promotion of algae growth and other microfauna and that they can eat off of.
Gotcha. Now
or
you
microflora they can eat off.
Microflora. Yeah, see, I'm not good with the scientific terms. All right, Lucas. Tip number 5.
All right, tip number 5 is one of the most basic, and that's to get the right shrimp for the right water. Saying that, you want to get Caridinias. If you got softer water, if you're on the harder water parameters, I would lean towards Neocaridina.
Nice. And how do you test for hardness? What parameters do you use?
Now you can use TDS, which is a combination of your GH and KH. And TDS is a good base, but if you're keeping Caridinia, I would recommend going ahead and testing your GH and KH. Because in my experience, Caridinias don't tend to like the KH as much, which are your bicarbonates.
Gotcha. All right, tip number 5, good one. Well, guys, you heard it. Lucas Bretz, aka Shrimp Jesus, shared his top 5 tips, And I promise you, none of those things were like rehearsed or like crazy. Like, hey, Lucas, I want you to say this or I want you to say that. That was just Lucas speaking from his heart. At least I think, right?
He was strong arm.
I was twisting his arm. Like, no, Lucas, don't say that. Take 20. No, so Lucas, thank you so much. Thank you for all your knowledge. Lucas has been in the hobby for how long have you been in the hobby?
With shrimp, about 10 years.
Wow, so he's been in it longer than me. So he has more experience than me, right? Technically.
With Neocaridina.
With Neocaridina. He actually is. You won the best red shrimp, Red Neocaridina in the USA.
I
right?
did.
He still has that claim.
I do. I do still have that claim. I didn't enter mine in just so I would have that claim.
Yep, you never have to worry about it.
Smart.
Well, Lucas, thank you so much for your tips. Guys, please go check out Bretz Aquatics on YouTube. I'll put the link down below. Subscribe to him, show him some love. Hit him up on Patreon. Support this guy's mission. He is doing some great things. And I know I definitely want to see you succeed. I'm sure everyone watching wants you to succeed.
Thank you, Rob. I appreciate it. You're one of the most honest guys.
Thank you very much, Lucas. And thank you guys for watching. So hopefully you enjoyed the video. And we'll talk to you guys soon. Later. Healthy shrimp is so important. And like I'm a huge advocate of USA breeders. Like you, Lucas, you're a USA breeder, and like support you 100%.
USA.
And
USA.
Exactly. I say all the time, like if you could buy from a local hobbyist, someone that keeps shrimp in the same water that you're using, like that is the way to go, because that's how you're gonna have success.
It's just tough getting them.
It is tough.
It's a labor of love to breed all them shrimp, and there's tricks and tips to that as well.
Yeah, and honestly, like the hobby is still growing, so like not everyone's doing it. The nice thing, I know we talked about like importing. There's a lot of importers that turn and burn. You know, there's very few importers that really, in my opinion, care about things, and that's why like when we decide to import, like the one thing we did is we offered 100% guarantee. So like, you know, Elobiops today is something you brought up, which I think is a very important topic. And I don't know if you've ever seen it personally in any of your tanks.
Luckily, I haven't.
So that's good.
Yes.
I mean, us importing, we definitely see it. Probably too often than we'd like. Like, I'd like to never see it at all. But we do have 100% guarantee. So, like, if you got shrimp from us, which I'm sure you plan on doing this weekend, I'm sure.
Everybody who knows me knows I won't buy imports, but Rob is different because he actually quarantines them.
Yep.
And that goes a long, long, long way with shrimp. Because for somebody to hold a shrimp for a month to make sure that there's not bacterial infections and any other issues, and then to guarantee him on top of that. And I'm not just selling Rob because I'm here. This is honestly how I feel. It makes a huge difference.
Well, thank you, Lucas. Well, hey, tip number 1, I think is the most important as well. Healthy shrimp from the beginning is always the most important. So, all right, Lucas, thank you for the tips.
You're welcome.